should we start roll call again?
We can.
Okay, because the speaker wasn't.
Okay. We'll
Paul
do
Ash,
Julie Donham.
Karen St. John.
Jackie Yana.
Yeah.
Mary Morgan.
Staff.
Alex Raleigh.
Holy Warren staff.
Jane Cooper Smith, staff. And then virtually we have Mary Morgan. You there, Mary?
Yes, hello, I'm here.
And Scott, it looks like you're with us today.
Yes, I am.
Hi. And then Stephen, would you identify yourself? We've got Stephen Lucas, also staff, and then it looks like Christopher MG has joined us from the chamber. So I think that's everyone.
All right.
Oh, you know what? I think this is Kate Rosenberger. Actually, I think I'm logged in as Steven right now, so I need to, I'll just change my name.
Okay.
I might have to log out and log back in.
You're fine. I think you've identified yourself. You're good.
Thanks, Kate. Appreciate that.
Okay.
And thanks everybody for being here and between the raindrops. We've done roll call, so now we need to do the approval of the minutes.
Yes, and I'll note there was a typo. EZID is typed as exit. for
Okay.
One, but I will correct that.
Okay. Are there any other additional changes to the minutes?
I move to approve.
Second.
All in favor, or I guess roll call, Paul?
Yes.
And Julie, yes.
Karen, yes.
Jackie, yes.
Alex, yes.
Mary, yes.
Got right, yes.
Kate, yes.
And Kate. Okay, great. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much. So Jane, we will start on the financial reports.
Super. Sorry if you're getting seasick from my. Okay, I'll just acknowledge to start that we've requested just before the meeting some changes to the presentation of the financial reports. So we will have comparative columns starting next meeting, which is great. So the balance sheet shows net income is 179.39. This would be a loan payment and interest income for 1 month. Yeah, for 1 month. And then we're reviewing February. We had February reports and March reports. So here's the balance sheet as of February 28th. Total current assets, 2,351,000. A list of our notes receivable, which totals 312,800 for total assets of 2,665,000. And then total liabilities and equity again of 2,665,000. Moving on to income statement for February. Again, we've got that whopping $17.34 interest coming in. And then total income, which reflects loan payments for that time period. Net income, 179.39. And then now we're looking at the balance sheet for March. So here we are again, net assets, 2,345,000. Total assets, 2,657,000, including our notes receivable of 312,000, which of course decreases a little bit every month. Total liabilities and equity of $2,657,456. And then here we have the income statement for March. March saw a little loan interest and late fees from loan payments. Total expenses, we had one zone arts grant go out that was paid from last fall, but accounted for this year. One business scholarship, total expenses, 3,900. Interest income of 96.92. So net, correct, net income of minus 3,709. So that's good. We finally started getting a little bit of money out the door for our programming, and that continues in April, which we've been paying out on DEI anti-racism scholarships. Any questions about the financials?
And you said the EASD bills are out and you've started to get some money in. Is that-
Yes, yeah. So we should have a lot of activity then over April and May.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have two sets of financials to approve, both the February and the March. Are there any questions on the February financial reports? So I'll take, if not, any questions, I'll take a motion to approve the February reports.
I just had a real quick
Okay.
question, sorry.
Yeah,
On the
no.
EASD bills being out, is that then money that's owed to us? And could that be recorded? Maybe, is it on here? Could
As
it
a
be re-
receivable, it's not reported as a receivable, and that was one of the big goals in switching to QuickBooks, which we did 2 years ago. And I think in Cheryl, we have a partner who will do that. So I'd be happy to make that request and just send her my spreadsheet.
Okay, yeah, I mean, if it's.
Because it's not really.
Let's do it.
It's-
I prefer not to track those manually. We can just, I mean, it's what QuickBooks is for, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're named and there's a due date and an amount and what it's for, it's a receivable. So yeah, that would need to be added in. I'd be sure
That'd be
we'll
great.
need to see what that amount is.
Does it become receivable on the date due? Is that typically the way it works, or on the date issued?
Is the date issued?
Right.
So it would be loaded as part of the April financials.
That would make sense.
When you invoice them?
Yeah,
Yeah,
somewhere in March, somewhere April.
yeah.
Okay. I wonder if it would be better to put them in the same month, though, just to, I don't know, from the perspective of QuickBooks, just to,
So
like, the date it went out was arbitrary.
Uh-huh.
Happened to be when they went out. So for our tracking, I wondered if, so we didn't
She
have
can
them.
figure it out,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So are there any additional questions on the financial reports? Okay, so I'll take a motion to approve the February reports.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
go ahead, all in favor, Paul,
Yes.
Julie, yes.
Carmen, yes?
Jackie? Yes.
Alex, yes.
Mary, yes.
Scott Wright, yes.
Kate, yes.
Okay, thank you. So the Februarys are approved, and any questions on the March financial reports? We're gonna see some changes and see some budget comparisons going forward. So anyway. if-
I'll move the motion, move to set, approve.
Thank you.
March.
Thank you. Second,
Second.
oh,
Yes.
Julie, yes.
Karen, yes?
Jackie, yes.
Alex, yes.
Mary, yes.
Scott Wright, yes.
Kate, yes.
Awesome.
This is what we call a hybrid vote.
Yes, and it's highly efficient.
So, anyway, but
I have one question just about financials in general.
uh-huh.
I think we talked about this a little while back, and I know there's a lot going on, but I wonder, these have really matured since I joined the board, which thank you
Right.
to Jane and staff that have done this. It's awesome. And I wonder if we could revive the conversation about cash projections moving into the future. And I
Yeah.
think the first time I thought about that was when you, Julie, made a comment about how long is the BVA going to last, given whatever the current situation is at any point in time.
Yeah.
And for example, like the catalytic possibility. And so I think it would be good to revive that conversation so that when we are budgeting and spending, we sort of know what we're looking at. And I'm not saying by any means that the goal is to make this last forever, but I think the goal is to just spend wisely and appropriately as we've been asked to do. And I think it's time to start doing that within the context of more than a month or a year, or maybe like a 5-year projection or whatever you determine, Jane, with staff is appropriate. And I know that that can be a little daunting sometimes to do that kind of projection. And I would offer as a suggestion that the Kelly School does have consultant students, that consultants that will do the work for free. And this might be a really great project to give them, and one that maybe they don't get that often for this kind of entity. So.
Great. Yeah, and I think we can make the adjustments to the financials by our next meeting, but I might need a couple months on projections, but I think.
Oh, yeah, it takes a while.
Yeah.
Well, it might be maybe the sort of, maybe it's the first, I mean, it's actually most appropriate budgeting, right? That's the moment when you want to kind of get a sense of like, because we've sort of committed 2022 to some degree, right?
Right.
So maybe the thing to do is to think about it as a lead up to budgeting. So
Yeah.
if the budget reviews are in November, December, maybe it's an October phenomenon or something like that, you know, catch the Kelly kids coming in, you know, I don't know if we could give them an early project, but you know, and then you set the broader framework and then you can budget within that framework.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think what the Kelly consultants can do is build the mechanism, so the asset that you can use ongoing. So that can be built at any time.
Yeah.
Because wherever they start, will be taking what the current data is and build it, and then we can use it, and we don't need them to run it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You raised a good point about the fact that they do, this is April, right? Yes, so they do have the summer off, and I can't recall, I've used them before, when they're all there now. What was that called? Were you with the Health Foundation? No, you weren't. 360-degree consulting or 360
Yeah, that
something.
sounds right.
They do all sorts of management consulting. And yeah, just to get to your point, get on their calendar and they'll do it when they do it, and it'll be free. And they were really professional. We used
Yeah.
it for 2 projects.
I actually, in a life before the city used, they also have summer school.
Yeah, and I was thinking we actually might have met them over the summer. Now that I
Well, I did, and that was a group that just gets airlifted in, right? I mean, they work remotely, then they get airlifted in for like a intensive 1 week before
Oh,
they get
that's
For
released.
like a project.
And they're
I
always
wonder-
looking for little
That's
projects.
the OMBA students that they have like weekend intensives.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Okay,
So,
I'll reach out.
yeah, Kelly's got all sorts
Yeah.
of things, but I know there's this consulting group. I feel like it has 360 in the title, but I might be making that up.
Yeah.
They were great, so.
Super.
So a lot of what plays into that though might be a lot of the discussions that we've had about projects that we're interested in that, you know, that we possibly will be putting in budgets for going forward, correct?
Right,
Yes, that's the way I would look
I
at
think
it.
it would affect all our decision-making if we had a view larger than a year
Yeah, I do
or
too.
2.
Yeah, and an easy way to plug in, like if we're considering program A, what that would look like.
Right.
Yeah, you'll end up with a spreadsheet that you can
Yeah.
just use as a tool.
Super.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, we are on to the director's report, Jane.
Okay, so there's sort of a lot in the director's report this month, which is great, it means we've been busy. So even though the packet is light, there's a fair amount to talk about. The first of which is a welcome to Chaz Nottinger, who's joined us as our new special projects manager. And we're especially lucky because Chaz has been a BUEA grant recipient in the past, so she actually is familiar with us and our mission, and yeah, we're really lucky to have her. So she may dip in and help on certain projects. So welcome, Chaz.
Welcome.
Thank you. And then, yeah, my next item is just that the eases are out, which is great. There was one item that the board had asked about last meeting. You wanted to know how the change in Catalent EZID revenue, like what that looked like. So I mapped it out here. Basically, we had 2 EASITs rolling off.
Right, if you're trying to project.
Oh, I'm not projecting, okay. Let me try again. Here we go. You can see lines 3 and 4 are the roll-off years 20K21, so their last payment year was last year. And then we have effectively 3 new pieces. One that they, oh, sorry, there's a typo. One that they filed in 19, that's line 5, so that's a smaller one. And then line 6 and 7 are both new EASITs that represent investments over the course of 2020. And so this is part of some pretty significant growth over there, but it didn't fall under any of their active abatements or their pending abatements. So they went this route for their economic incentive. So previously we received a total of 204,000. And then with these new ones through 3030, we'll receive 211,000, and then that smaller $7,000 EASIT will roll off, and so it will decrease a little bit. But that's some significant income for the BUEA for the next 10 years.
Is that 2030, K 2031?
Yeah, so that's the last year.
Okay. So that's an annual amount in column D or total?
Annual.
It's annual. Oh, I see. So, okay.
So do you add I'm trying to figure out how you get to the 204 or the 211.
So 204 is rows 3 and 4, column D
Okay,
combined.
okay.
Would have made more sense if here, let me do this. in a little line opener. There. And then new annual income is these 3 EASITs together,
Okay.
which is not, I think I need to update that. Sorry, guys. This is a new digital activity live counting.
So the headline is, yes, we lost a lot of annual revenue from the roll-off, but we've basically more than made up for it.
Yeah, so, and then the other general trend is that we have a lot of real property EASITs that are not being replaced. So, and then we've had more difficulty bringing on new personal property EASITs. I think just the nature of a lot of what's been happening in the enterprise zone is that it's office work and it's in the TIF. So the new real property are sort of out of play. And then new personal property has been more challenging to bring on. But I have been doing outreach a little bit via email, and then some just targeted outreach meeting with business owners that I want to be sure that they're aware that they're entitled to basically a personal property abatement through the enterprise zone. So hopefully that will bear some fruit. I don't want to spend too much time on that, but this was just to answer your very specific question.
So basically, this tells me, I'm glad that we didn't like budget with that catalyst in, because it basically is replacement income, right? Yeah, so, okay. That helps, this helps a lot.
Yeah, and then I think there's a new round of new filings that we will likely receive this year too. We'll just have to wait and see what they file. And then we're
And you
doing,
mean what Catlin files?
yes,
Because that was what, I think that was the one we were worried about budgeting about, right?
yeah,
And that hasn't been settled yet.
right.
Okay,
Yeah,
Okay,
it's still
so-
up in the air.
yeah.
So this is
This is,
concrete.
okay, all
Yeah,
right, all
yeah.
right.
You're
I
right.
misunderstood that.
Yeah,
You're right.
right.
And then we're doing an internally an ESDN audit of what is at play for them, generally speaking. Okay, so that's that.
Can I just clarify? I think I know this, but I just want you to say it
Yeah.
true. So if someone's in the BUEA, but they're also in the TIF rules in
Yes.
terms of, right, we don't get that. So what we get is the carve out of whatever's left.
Well, just to be clear, so that's true of real estate. Personal property in a TIF personal property is not collected unless the employer is named. And we have none of those. So personal property right now falls outside of the TIF, which is why Jane's targeting a personal property makes a lot of sense, because the TIF's not unsubstantial. So that's an available carve out that we can at this point continue to use and draw into the UEA side of the equation as opposed to, because it's not being affected.
Okay.
Right, okay, so it's only real property.
It's only real
too.
property. that's it.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
And the other thing, that's important about Jane's strategy here is that if you remember during the, God help you if you're watching these, but we went through the council review of the Catalan tax abatement recently for personal property primarily, and there was some concern from certain council members, that the idea of a tax abatement on personal property shouldn't be limited to just big companies, right? And which is a legitimate question to ask, but the reality is it's not, because they have all of them, and most of them are sitting beside the UEA, have the ability to actually take advantage of this, that just aren't. And it's not hard to do, it's a slam dunk, and they should be doing it. So really, Jane's focus on that will help, to even the playing field.
Great. Okay, item 2 is that we have some events on deck finally, which is also exciting. So Lisa has been doing event planning. So we have a resident event that we will share a flyer about next week. That's on April 29th at the Banneker, April 30th. So that's a Saturday morning. And we will just be hosting residents and communicating with them about our programming, and also trying to have conversations about what their needs are. We have a business event at the Mill on the 29th, and there we will communicate about our business programs and the incentives. And then again, that'll be a two-way conversation. We will try to get feedback about what people's needs are. We have a summer event with the chamber scheduled for, Alex, this is for you, Bastille Day, July 14th. Yeah. So that's exciting to really be making some progress on doing outreach, which is super important. And then on that note, Lisa sent out our business survey this morning, which probably at least hit your inbox. So this is part of our work to investigate what programming is needed by zone businesses. We had a question about whether we're doing the best job administering these funds, whether we're getting enough money out into the community. And so the board suggested that we need to do some research to find out if we add more programming, what should that be? We've already received really significant feedback that safety, cleanliness, and lighting are some major concerns of zone businesses. So I'm pretty confident that that will come up as an issue that businesses might like to have supported. That just has to do with kind of being part of this corridor where a lot of unhoused folks are seeking services, but it's also just provided challenges to the physical environment. There's increased trash and a lot of property damage. And the business owners, I think the ones that have been speaking out have really kind of hit a tipping point. They're not saying that they don't want the individuals who are, living in these areas. They're not trying to diminish their experience or what challenges they're facing. They're just kind of saying, okay, we are also having some significant challenges now because of this, crisis that unhoused folks are experiencing downtown. So I think that will continue to be a topic of conversation, and we'll report out on that. The scholarship application went online in very dramatic fashion yesterday. I'm joking, it wasn't dramatic at all. I made a Canva post, everybody, it was really exciting. So I put a deadline on it for May 31st, so we'll do that in 2 cycles. I have an appointment next week to meet with the guidance department at North. So I will be trying to see if there are any graduating seniors who might be interested in funding. And then we'll do that again in the fall. And I really do feel optimistic about the grant deadline or the scholarship deadline being a good driver of applications.
I saw it, the post.
Did you like it?
I did. I was like, oh my gosh, someone posted this.
Someone posted
I actually
something.
thought that.
Yeah.
This is great. They're getting it done.
And then the reason I posted that, I had been hedging and kind of waiting to see if we would get our grant management software up and running. The onboarding is just taking longer than we planned, but Chaz is here. That's her first big project. So she's
Thank
going to
you.
be moving our grants online into that interface and then teaching us all how to edit and use it. So that should be forthcoming. And then the last item, I told you there was a lot. The last item on my list is that CDFI Friendly Bloomington is having an event tomorrow that the BUA board is all invited to. That starts at 3:30 at the Farr Center at 4th and Rogers. And so 3:30 to 5:30 is sort of the more detailed lending presentation. I think Sinair and Bankable will be here and they'll be presenting. 5:30 to 6:30 is when the reception starts. And then I think Tina Peterson from the foundation will be giving some remarks. And then 6:30 to 7:30 is just the wild merriment, no structure. So you should attend whichever section appeals if you want to. And I can email that invite out again too. So that's it for my director's report.
Are there any questions for Jane? Jane, you had just mentioned to me, and this may be a little bit prematurely, but what you had one business come to you back on the safety and issue, and the business that had 2 incidents within like a week or something like that.
It's really just really terrible. So this person, their business is located on Rogers Street. And again, there's kind of a thorough pedestrian, not a formal pedestrian thoroughfare, but there is a de facto pedestrian thoroughfare behind their building. And they have been targeted. They have a custom vending machine, which they developed with Kelly One Consulting, and then they prototyped it, which is pretty great. But that does mean the machine is hard to replace. So the individuals tried to break into the machine. They did $7,000 worth of damage. The machine had to be pulled out of circulation and shipped off to be repaired. So there's the cost of the repair and then there's the lost revenue. And then that individual had a notification on their security camera that someone was actively trying to break in
To their door.
to their door. And they went down there and perhaps put themselves in harm's way. I mean, they did put themselves in harm's way. But BPD did get there while the individual was still there and arrested them. And it was connected. They had been scoping it out. And they believed there was a lot of cash on the premises. So, you know, that event is particularly illustrative of how it's more than just inconvenient property damage for some folks. It's significant, significant dollars are involved, and then
Dollars and time. Yeah.
and then potential for physical harm. There were other incidences like that at another nonprofit farther south where their patrons had been compromised. So I think the question for the BUA is not really how can the BUA help solve homelessness for all these people who are experiencing it, but how can the BUA support the businesses in recovering a more neutral way of operating?
That was my question too, was just following up on that.
Yeah, we can't help probably the homelessness situation, but maybe
No,
the
but-
businesses.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what that is either. When we talk about lighting and cleanliness, I mean, cleanliness we could, but.
Yeah, and that's what,
I mean, that's actually doable if it's like a pick up the trash kind of thing, because Centerstone runs a program that City Parks participates in, and I worked on when I was at the foundation that if it's funded enough, they can expand their footprint and they bring in clients to clean
Yeah.
and they get paid, which is a great thing for people in that situation.
And Mary, you should feel free to chime in if you have any insight. But I will say that downtown, I can't, what's DVI's governing or national governing organization?
Main Street.
Main Street Main Street USA has, several like data-driven points that they recommend if you're trying to have a business district be viable for retail. It has to be clean, it has to feel safe, and it has to be well lit, not in that order, because I think the cleanliness and well lightedness contribute to the feeling of safety. So I think I don't think we can engineer individuals' feelings, but I think there are some environmental issues that we can, or, environmental things we can contribute to.
Lighting's expensive to do, but
It is.
cleaning could be done. We could help fund that. DBI could maybe help fund it with us.
Right.
Come up with an expanded team for Centerstone to do that. I know they have, their transport vans are funded by Curry Auto. You see them around
Oh,
town,
yeah.
they're white, along with other, but
Okay.
they funded the vans. I think they do too now. And there are people who are given a real job Monday through Friday. It's a job, you show up, you work, and it makes a big difference in the lives of. Paul McDevitt can go on and on about it, what happened with parks with that.
Yeah.
You've heard that story, but
Well, yeah,
it's
and
great.
we copied it. ESD has supported a twin version of that program that is housed in Public Works as well. So they're going into different areas in town and doing leaping, supporting the leaping program and doing
Yeah.
other cleanup efforts, but it's the same thing. It's really,
So we could have them clean up, help fund cleanup of BUA streets and areas. I don't know what that would cost. or how big-
Zone, yeah.
Yeah, the zone. I mean, we could find out from Centerstone what it would take to do that. And that could be a big deal to pick up trash in the zone. And
It
then
could be a
light-
win-win.
It could be a win-win. And then lighting is going to be just a whole different thing. It's expensive.
It is expensive, but I mentioned to Jane, something like that may be something we go in partnership with businesses, so they have some skin in the game, and it's not just all on us, so.
Absolutely.
But it may be able to push them over the hump to be able to do some things that they're not
Yeah.
doing, so. Not able to do,
Yeah.
so. I don't know, it's basic, it's gonna be a good discussion, I think.
yeah, I think so too.
So,
Part of the issue.
I would, oh, sorry.
Part of the issue with lighting is ascertaining who has responsibility for it. Is that a Duke light or is that the business's light? Hoosier Heights just had that issue because they had acquired the church and renovated it and everything, and they didn't know that this light was on them. And then who to bring in to fix it.
Mhm.
Because the homeless were setting up, in a dark spot.
Mary, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say that both Alex and I serve on the DBI board, and I'd be happy to bring it up at our next meeting to see if it's possible for some kind of partnership with BUEA to address the cleanliness and lighting issues.
That would be great if you feel comfortable. Of course, we don't have anything fully baked yet, but I think,
but at least start the discussion.
And at least there's mechanisms in place for the cleaning that already exist in that kind of partnership. So it's really an expansion
Right.
of that program.
I will say that the barrier with that program, I think, has to do with city staff management and Centerstone management. So it's more than paying the individuals who are working in the crews on the street, but like Karen mentioned, transportation as being key to that program's success. And then there is a lot of work on the part of Centerstone too.
Yeah, so it's a grant to Centerstone that covers all the costs.
Yeah.
You're exactly right. It's supported employment, so they're employed, but they're supported. And it's actually part of a recovery program to have that. And so it's been super helpful for Paula, who can't get enough people. So yeah, you're right. It would have to be a grant amount that we kick in a certain amount and they, you know,
Yeah.
make it work because they can't lose money on it either.
So then they would have the oversight of
They
it?
have the oversight and they have the van lease. I worked on this extensively with Owl Foundation. They have the van lease, it's under their name. They have their staff member that they pay for the gas, they pick the people up. I think the city maybe provided best because they're yellow and I think they say parks or something on them, but yeah, it's all there. So it would be us gifting money to another 501c3, which would be Centerstone to run the program in an, you know, agreement, an MOU with them, and maybe DBI too, want to be on it, because it's not cheap, but it's definitely doable. and It's
Yeah.
really great. And there are people who want to work, so
I think that sounds like a win-win, so.
I just don't know what the cost would be. but
Yeah.
given that You could, I guess you could start with the part of the BUEA that has businesses in it. I'm not suggesting that the BUEA residential is not important, but you could like make it a scalable, like start with this because the business owner said something and go from there,
Yeah.
or just find out what the whole thing would be.
Yeah. Great.
It's also kind of interesting. I mean, if you take a step back, like the BUEA is like a theoretical concept to people, right? I mean, it's not really visible unless
Yeah.
it happens to have a plaque next to something that we did, right? And having people walking around the street on picking up garbage with BUEA written on their back, I mean, it suddenly makes it a little bit more visible, a little bit more real to people. And, you know, it's a good way to kind of hook people into asking the question, what is this? And, you know, what are the
Yeah.
benefits?
Exactly. They could put the vans branded with Curry and everybody else that supported the program. There's a bunch, if you see the white vans, there are lots of businesses on them.
Yeah.
So absolutely. And I think we looked at we talked about not that long ago, like what are other BUEA or what are other urban enterprise associations doing? And I think there was one in Evansville that was doing city beautification, planting flowers, things like that.
Which honestly, I can speak from my personal experience. It's really hard to, landscaping's expensive and time consuming if it's outside of, like, I don't know what St. John's does. You guys always have really nice looking planter out there. Do you hire a landscaping company?
We have somebody doing it. It's been vandalized a lot, so we've had to
Yeah.
scale it back a ton. People steal the plants out of the ground.
did they?
That's happened to
Yeah.
us on our porch.
They will
On
steal your
Rogers, yeah.
boxwood bushes. They will literally take them.
Oh, wow,
They dig
that's
them out and
sad.
steal them. So we unfortunately now put less money into it, but we try to not tip over the side that it's unattractive because we're right on the beeline. So we try to keep it clean. We pay someone Monday through Friday who shows up every morning to clean the property all around First Street through the whole parking lot. And they pick up stuff every day. So we work really hard to keep that clean, but it's a challenge from an expense standpoint. But you're right, landscaping is really expensive, but I guess I was going back to like, there are urban enterprise associations doing interesting things like we're talking about, like helping fund cleanup.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
That's
it
is
for
that
me.
on the director's report?
Yeah, that's it for me.
New,
it's awesome. Thanks.
yeah,
That's great.
a lot of
Well,
stuff, and I'm glad things are like moving.
It's
Yeah,
Lisa. She's really, I think it took a semester to get oriented and now she's really just getting it done. It's really,
Good.
it's good to see. Yeah.
moving on to new business. I don't have any new business. Do you have new business?
No, I mean, we kind of talked about it and what's going on with the survey and new programs we might consider.
Right.
But-
Yeah.
And
Which I think is an ongoing discussion for us. So and when the survey comes back, when do you anticipate the survey to be back?
we didn't put a firm deadline on it, because I think we anticipated we may have to do a fair amount of follow-up.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I'd kind of like to have the volume of responses be our guide, but
Okay.
we could check in about it next month, and I would think maybe 2 months
Would-
out, we'd want to call that.
And see where we are.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that sounds good. Unfinished business?
I don't think I have any. We talked briefly about the marketing intern and that Chaz's first job that she did was write that position description. So that's still live. It's
Yeah.
just taking some time. So it's exciting for ESD. I know we're always talking about our workload, but we've been down 2 staff members for 6 months. And so we're now fully staffed again for the first time. And I think it'll be a lot easier to make progress on some of the things that have been languishing.
So what's the timeline on the marketing intern, do you think?
Kind of depends what kind of response
Applicants
we
you
get.
get.
Yeah.
So, okay. All right. Does anybody else have any more unfinished business for the group?
Well, if Alex has any input on the old hospital site, the Hopewell site, there'll be the need for some art in there. Of course, this is premature on that. But, you know, as things progress.
It's not premature though. I think Holly is actively engaged in those conversations for the development of that.
Needing money?
For art.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. And we're taking a couple of different routes. So definitely amping up with the BAC. So I'm kind of hoping to be able, really, now that Chaz is here, kind of turn my attention more to public art projects like that for the
Right.
second half of the year, which is super duper exciting. So definitely nailing down with the BAC more concrete thoughts about what this could look like. We've also been invited by an entity called Exhibit Columbus. I don't know if any of you are familiar with this initiative, but every 2 years they do an outdoor exhibition in Columbus where they bring in a group of design thinkers, and these are great scholars to think about placemaking in a community, to think about how things can be better at different sites in Columbus. For this, the 2023 rendition of this project, they have reached out to Bloomington and said, hey, would you be interested in using one of our design fellows to think about what kind of arts activities we're putting at the hospital redevelopment site? So this is the very beginning of a conversation we're embarking on. I don't know how far it's going to get us. I don't know what it will like tangibly result in, but it's just great to know that we have these like very smart-minded design individuals willing to look at this project with the BAC and give us recommendations how we can best use our funds for this. So it's really, really exciting. And I think too, one thing I know I'm thinking about is both, it's Hopewell, the redevelopment site, but then also just all the businesses in that corridor. And that's something I'm thinking about. We're also doing an arts feasibility study with an outside architecture firm right now and thinking about, okay, what does arts look like around the city of Bloomington, not just in central facilities like the Waldron Center, the Buzzard Chumley, but in other corridors of the city. And so I'm really pushing them to think heavily about Hopewell and that site and how we can just create more opportunities for artists to bring some of their entrepreneurial endeavors to that area of town. So very burgeoning, growing ideas now that are too structured at this point, but I'm hoping over the next 6 months to really be able to build this out. So
That's exciting.
Be sure to include the neighborhoods.
yes,
You'd be
yeah, that is
amazed.
so Chaz and I are also working right now. We're going to be doing a series of focus groups in early May, and we're really hoping to get community members from all neighborhoods involved to talk about what they need, because, you know, I think it's so easy to just go to the usual suspect art stakeholders, you know, and they kind of tell us the same thing over and over again, and I love them, they're amazing, but I'm like, okay, time for fresh perspectives from neighborhoods to tell us what they need as well. So that really is one thing that we're, again, really drilling down into for this study.
We have a lot of artists.
Yeah, oh, we have so many artists, it's awesome. And we need more space for them, so.
Very good. All right, is there any general discussion for the group? If there's not, the next BUAA board meeting will be May 11th, and I assume it will be on a hybrid format also.
Yeah.
So you'll need to let Jane know whether you're going to be in person or online, correct?
Right.
All right, is there anything else we need to know?
About that, yes, and I can email about it. or maybe you know better offhand, you can only attend how many?
So you can only attend 50% of meetings in 1 year virtually. But that starts in March, so it doesn't start in January. So because everybody had to meet
Okay.
virtually in January and February, we're only counting the 50% starting in March. You also can only attend 2 consecutive meetings virtually. So if you do March and April virtually, you need to be physically present for the May meeting.
Okay, is that like a city rule?
Yes, that is
Okay.
a city rule.
And I
Yes.
can email that to clarify. We're tracking attendance just
Okay,
to make it easier so you don't have to track yourselves.
Larry, did you join?
I am, yeah, it's a state rule. It's technically a legislative rule, but you all adopted rules that we can disseminate that Jane has for the electronic meetings policy. I would just say one thing that's important, and this is to the intent of the group as well, is that for the future reference, if you are joining electronically, you will have to have access to your camera. The idea is that everybody can be seen and observed simultaneously during the meeting. So just want to make that clear going forward for the hybrid meetings. But we do have those rules in place that you all adopted in 2021, and we'll disseminate those.
And we decided to adopt the city rules.
The state, but
state
Larry,
rule.
not to put a too fine point on it, but that was a voluntary action by the BUEA, which the BUEA can reverse if it wants to, unlike the Arts Commission, which has to follow that, right?
That's correct. Yeah, it's a state law, but we've typically treated the BUEA, even though it's a private nonprofit. The intent of the board and when you adopted the rules was to kind of follow that transparent process of mirroring the state law. Now, there are some differences in the policy, and I'm happy to write up a summary for Jane to send out to all of you so that we have it for the next time.
I can also share this. We put together something similar for the BAC.
We have it.
Oh, you got it, okay.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I think that we did decide to follow the state, even though we're not required to follow the rules that the city is following. We said we should because it's so closely tied to tax revenue.
And there are a few minor differences also between other city boards and what the BUEA adopted that we can highlight.
Okay.
all right. If there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
how about just all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you, everyone. We appreciate your help.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.